For decades, Hollywood sold us legends, fearless, flawless, untouchable. But at 88, Dustin Hoffman chose not to talk about awards, fame, or success. He spoke about silence. About nights spent not in passion, but in fear, loneliness, and survival. 5 men. 5 icons the world worshipped as symbols of masculinity. What happened behind closed doors wasn't scandal, it was desperation. And now, with nothing left to protect and time running out, Hoffman finally reveals the truth Hollywood buried for generations. Marlon Brando, the night the Godfather was afraid to be alone. By the winter of 1974, Marlon Brando was no longer the man the world believed in. To the public, he was still the Godfather, a monument of masculinity, a myth wrapped in power, violence, and dominance. But behind the gates of his mansion on Mulholland Drive, the legend had already collapsed. The house across the street belonged to Dustin Hoffman, a rising star at the time, still standing in the shadow of men like Brando. What Dustin didn't know was that the shadow was hollow. Hollywood whispered about Brando endlessly, about excess, chaos, about desires that didn't fit the image he sold. But whispers don't prepare you for reality. At 2 in the morning, on a rain-soaked November night, the phone rang. No party, no laughter, just a request. Quiet, pressured, urgent. Brando needed him. When Dustin stepped inside that mansion, the illusion died instantly. The air was stale. Curtains sealed the world out. The smell of neglect lingered, old food, wet fabric, something decaying slowly. And there, in the master bedroom, lay Marlon Brando. Not a king, not a god. A massive body sunk into tangled sheets, eyes locked onto a television broadcasting nothing but static. Brando didn't ask for sex. He didn't ask for comfort. He didn't even speak. He slammed his hand onto the empty side of the bed. It wasn't an invitation. It was an order born from fear. Dustin lay down fully clothed, rain still clinging to his jacket, the distance between them painfully small. The room was silent except for Brando's breathing, heavy, uneven, haunted. This wasn't the breath of desire. It was the sound of a man drowning in memory. That was when Dustin understood the truth behind the rumors. Brando wasn't reaching for another man out of attraction. He was reaching for anyone who could replace the absence left by Wally Cox, the one person who had truly known him. Dustin wasn't a lover. He was a substitute, a living placeholder. They didn't touch. Not at first. But near dawn, trapped inside a nightmare, Brando wrapped his massive arm around Dustin's body, clutching him like a life raft. The grip was tight, possessive, desperate. Dustin felt the weight of a legend reduced to a frightened child, clinging not for pleasure, but for survival. He stayed still, because resistance would have shattered something fragile and dangerous. When morning came, the spell broke. Brando slept peacefully, drool at the corner of his mouth, snoring loudly, stripped of every ounce of myth. Dustin walked out as the gates closed behind him, finally understanding the most shocking truth of all. The scandal was never Brando's sexuality. The real horror was that the most powerful man in Hollywood couldn't survive a single night alone. That night, Dustin Hoffman didn't sleep with a man. He slept with a ghost. A legend already dead, desperately borrowing warmth from the living. Laurence Olivier, the perfect mask that never slept. If Marlon Brando represented chaos collapsing inward, Laurence Olivier was something far colder. He was discipline, control, marble carved into human form. To the world, Olivier was untouchable, the knighted king of Shakespeare, the embodiment of refined masculinity and artistic purity. He didn't sweat. He didn't beg. He certainly didn't break. But in the winter of 1975, in a quiet Paris hotel room, Dustin Hoffman witnessed the most terrifying performance of Olivier's life, not on stage, but in bed. They were filming Marathon Man, a production remembered for artistic clashes and egos. Dustin, raw and obsessive, believed in suffering for truth. Olivier believed in mastery, technique over torment. Their conflict was legendary. What wasn't known were the rumors whispered through elite corridors, Olivier's secret life, the long-denied love affairs, the truth he had buried under knighthood, wives, and reputation. A life split cleanly in two. That night, Olivier was dying slowly. Cancer gnawed at him. Gout crippled his body. Painkillers lined the bedside like obedient soldiers. When Dustin was summoned to Olivier's hotel room, the door stood open, as if the mask had finally slipped. Inside, the air was thick with lavender cologne. Too strong, too deliberate. The scent of cover-up. Olivier lay shaking beneath the sheets, fever burning away the grandeur. Without makeup, without posture, he looked impossibly old. Well, human. He didn't speak. Instead, with a trembling hand, he pulled at Dustin's coat. It wasn't seduction. It wasn't desire. It was need, pure and humiliating. Dustin climbed onto the bed and lay beside him, rigid, fully clothed as Olivier curled inward, pressing his face into Dustin's shoulder like a man freezing in the dark. The great Laurence Olivier, the titan of Western theater, clung silently, desperately, inhaling the warmth of another man as if trying to memorize it. Throughout the night, boundaries dissolved. In delirium, Olivier wasn't holding Dustin Hoffman. He was holding a memory. A past he had amputated to survive. A love he had buried to maintain the illusion of perfection. Dustin felt it clearly. He wasn't a person in that bed. He was a stand-in for everything Olivier had denied himself. There was no sex. But the intimacy was unbearable. Groans of pain blended with something else. Relief, longing, a pleasure so forbidden it could only exist in darkness. Dustin lay awake, realizing he was being used not as a lover, but as a living confession. A warmth stolen from the life Olivier never allowed himself to live. And then morning arrived. The transformation was immediate and merciless. Olivier woke first, sat upright, fixed his hair, reapplied cologne. The mask slid back into place with terrifying precision. When he looked at Dustin, there was no gratitude, no acknowledgement, only cold distance, like a valet who had overstayed his welcome. The night was erased. Dustin understood then why Olivier belonged on the list. Not because of intimacy, but because of the lie. The greatest performance Laurence Olivier ever gave wasn't Hamlet or Othello. It was pretending every single day to be a man he was not, while his soul reached for another name in the dark. That night, Dustin didn't sleep beside a legend. He slept beside a man who had perfected the art of disappearing, even from himself. John Travolta, the prisoner in the glass cage. By the late 1990s, John Travolta had already won. At least, that's what the world believed. He had survived the brutal rise and fall of Hollywood fame and returned stronger than ever. Pulp Fiction resurrected him. Saturday Night Fever immortalized him. He had money, power, a private jet waiting on the tarmac like a loyal pet. A marriage the tabloids praised as perfect. A smile that could disarm a room before a word was spoken. But perfection can be a cage, especially when it's made of glass. Everyone could see inside. No one dared to break it. In 1997, while promoting Mad City, Dustin Hoffman saw the cost of that perfection up close. The rumors were everywhere. Saunas, private pilots, carefully silenced settlements, and an invisible organization hovering constantly in the background, watching. Hollywood knew. Hollywood always knows. But silence was the price of survival. Travolta lived inside a public secret. Every handshake, every laugh, every red carpet pose was rehearsed. He wasn't acting for cameras alone. He was acting for handlers, for contracts, for belief systems, and for a version of himself he had been forced to perform for so long that it began to feel real. Until one night, it shattered. Late after shooting, behind the set, Travolta disappeared into his trailer. No music. No guests. No bravado. When Dustin was asked to check on him, he didn't expect to find a movie star unraveling. The trailer was sealed tight, curtains drawn, paparazzi flashes bouncing uselessly off the walls outside. Inside, the man known for confidence was curled on a velvet sofa, drenched in sweat, eyes unfocused. The smile was gone. So was the control. This wasn't a sexual crisis. This was a collapse. Travolta didn't need desire. He could buy that anywhere. What he needed was safety. Someone too powerful to gossip. Too experienced to misunderstand. Someone who knew that silence, in Hollywood, was a currency more valuable than truth. He pulled Dustin down beside him. Then slowly, like a man surrendering a lifetime of tension, he laid his head in Dustin's lap. His body followed, heavy, exhausted, shaking, not from fear of being touched, but from decades of pretending not to exist. That night, they slept on that narrow sofa while guards paced outside, protecting a secret worth millions. Travolta clutched Dustin's waist like a child afraid to be lost in a crowd. Every distant siren made his body tense. Every unfamiliar sound sent his grip tighter. He never truly slept. He only closed his eyes between performances. Dustin felt it, the unbearable weight of a man who could fly across continents alone but could not walk out his own door as himself. Fame had not freed Travolta. It had sentenced him. The image that saved his career had become a life sentence with no parole. When dawn came, the transformation was instantaneous. A knock on the door. Makeup time. Travolta stood, fixed his hair, straightened his clothes, and the mask returned flawlessly. The fear vanished. The trembling stopped. The smile reappeared, perfect, radiant, lethal. When he looked at Dustin, there was no plea left in his eyes, only a quiet warning. Last night never happened. Dustin understood why Travolta belonged on the list. Not because of touch, not because of desire, but because of captivity. That night, he didn't sleep with a man. He slept with a contract, an unbreakable agreement between fame and self-erasure. And no matter how far John Travolta flew his private jet, Dustin knew one truth would always follow him. He would never be free. Kevin Spacey, the predator behind the smile. If the men before him were prisoners of fear, Kevin Spacey was something far more unsettling. He wasn't hiding. He was hunting. In the mid-1990s, Kevin Spacey was still climbing. Not yet a household name, not yet untouchable, but already dangerous. On the surface, he was charming, brilliant, endlessly entertaining. On set, he mimicked voices, cracked jokes, made himself indispensable. He moved easily through rooms, always welcome, always smiling. But Dustin Hoffman had been in Hollywood long enough to recognize a mask when he saw one. Behind Spacey's warmth was something off. Something calculating. The laughter didn't reach his eyes. The friendliness lingered a second too long. And backstage, the whispers were darker than anything Dustin had heard about Brando or Olivier. Stories about young actors who vanished from parties shaken. About mentorships that felt more like traps. About hands that wandered under the excuse of playfulness. Spacey wasn't driven by loneliness. He was driven by power. In the spring of 1995, while filming Outbreak, the cast was stranded overnight at a remote hotel in Northern California. Rain battered the building. The crew drank heavily to kill time and isolation. Dustin, tired and dulled by scotch, barely registered how he ended up in a room with a single narrow bed. What he did register, too late, was that he wasn't alone. Somewhere between exhaustion and alcohol, Kevin Spacey was there. Maybe he had slipped into the room. Maybe Dustin had stumbled into his. It didn't matter. What mattered was the feeling the moment Dustin lay down. This was different. There was no desperation, no trembling, no reaching for warmth. Spacey lay still, silent, occupying the space with absolute control. Dustin turned his back, instinct screaming. Something ancient told him not to move, not to speak, not to acknowledge the presence beside him. The room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that signals danger. Around midnight, Dustin woke, not from noise, but from its absence. He opened his eyes just enough to see it. Kevin Spacey was awake, flat on his back, hands folded neatly over his chest, eyes wide open in the darkness, reflecting nothing. He wasn't staring at the ceiling. He was watching Dustin breathe, studying him with the calm focus of a scientist or a predator assessing prey. There was no lust in that gaze, only calculation. In that moment, Dustin understood everything. Spacey didn't want connection. He wanted dominance. He wanted to be present in another man's most vulnerable state and own it. Lying beside Dustin Hoffman, doing nothing, was the point. It was a silent declaration of control. Spacey shifted slightly, close enough for his breath to brush Dustin's ear. Still no touch. The threat was psychological and perfect. Dustin stayed frozen, sweat soaking the pillow, every muscle locked in survival mode. He knew that waking fully, turning around, confronting him, any reaction at all, could provoke something unpredictable. Spacey fed on awareness, on fear, on the knowledge that his presence alone could dismantle another person. The bed became a battlefield. Only one man was sleeping. The other was waiting. When morning came, Spacey was gone. No note. No explanation. On set, he reappeared cheerful, magnetic, joking with the crew. As he passed Dustin, he smiled and winked. A silent confirmation. He knew. That night had been a victory. Dustin Hoffman included Kevin Spacey on the list not because of intimacy, but because of terror. He hadn't slept beside a colleague, or even a damaged soul. He had slept next to a void. A man who weaponized talent, charm, and secrecy into a predatory art form. A man who never stopped performing, because behind the smile, the eyes were always open, always watching, always waiting. That night was a warning about what happens when power meets concealment, and conscience never enters the room. Rock Hudson, the lie that killed a star. Rock Hudson was never dangerous. He was already dying. By the early 1980s, Hollywood still treated him like a monument, tall, handsome, immaculately groomed, the eternal symbol of American masculinity. Women adored him. Studios trusted him. The public believed him. Rock Hudson was the perfect man in a perfect dream. And that dream was killing him. Everyone in the industry knew the truth. Not as gossip, but as an open secret sealed by contracts, handlers, and fear. Rock Hudson was gay, and his life had been engineered to erase that fact. A fake marriage. Carefully staged appearances. A public image so rigid that even breathing outside it felt like betrayal. The lie had become total. On a humid summer night after a charity event in Beverly Hills, Dustin Hoffman saw what happened when that lie finally began to crack. Hudson invited him back to a rented house. Lavish, spotless, glowing with candlelight. It should have felt warm. Instead, it felt like a mausoleum. Hudson sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped, hands trembling. The smile he wore for the world was gone. In its place was something far more frightening, pure, unfiltered terror. This was the era when AIDS had begun to whisper through Hollywood. No one said the word out loud, but everyone felt its presence. For a man like Rock Hudson, exposure meant more than illness. It meant annihilation. Career, legacy, identity, all erased at once. He gestured for Dustin to sit beside him. There was no seduction, no touch, no desire. Hudson didn't need intimacy. He needed a witness. Someone powerful enough not to speak. Someone who could see him collapse without turning it into a headline. For the first time in his life, Rock Hudson wasn't performing. He was simply afraid to be alone. That night, they slept in the bed built to sell Hudson's fake happiness. Dustin lay rigid, sensing waves of panic radiating from the man beside him. Hudson didn't cling or reach out. He lay still, staring into darkness, his breath shallow and uneven. Sometimes, he raised a hand to cover his mouth, silencing sobs that never fully escaped. No tears fell. But the desperation was overwhelming. Dustin understood then that Hudson wasn't just afraid of being outed as gay. He was afraid of being exposed as a lie. A beautiful, profitable lie. Sleeping beside another man wasn't rebellion for Hudson. It was survival. A quiet, unconscious attempt to reclaim himself for a few hours before the mask had to go back on. In the darkness, away from cameras and contracts, he allowed himself one forbidden truth: existence without performance. Morning erased everything. Hudson stood, drank juice. The Rock Hudson the world loved snapped back into place flawlessly. No acknowledgement of the night. No thanks. No memory. The lie reasserted itself completely. Dustin Hoffman included Rock Hudson on the list not because of scandal, but because of tragedy. Hudson wasn't a predator. He wasn't a manipulator. He was the ultimate casualty. A man forced to play a hero until the moment it destroyed him. When Rock Hudson died of AIDS a few years later, the truth shocked the world. But for Dustin, the truth had been revealed long before, in a silent bedroom where a living legend lay beside him, already gone. That night, Dustin didn't sleep with a star. He slept with a man who died because he was never allowed to live as himself. And that was the final cost Hollywood demanded. 5 men, 5 nights. Not stories of desire, but of fear, power, silence, and survival. Legends the world worshipped didn't sleep for love. They slept to escape themselves. Behind fame, behind contracts, behind perfect smiles, they were all running from the same truth. And Dustin Hoffman was there, silent, watching, carrying secrets that were never his to tell until now. But here's the real question. Was this the end of the list? Or are there names Hollywood still refuses to let you hear? Subscribe. Stay with us. And tell us in the comments, who should be revealed next?